Apologies, folks, for coming up a little bit late. I'm an old-fashioned guy. I am easily entertained, and my current kick is the Lone Ranger, Clayton Moore, who is actually from around this area, Calcutta, in nearby Ohio. I just love the Lone Ranger, truth, justice, the American way, hi-ho, silver, and all that stuff. And I'm not joking even a little bit. Regular viewers that have watched me for years may have heard me remark that I'm not overly fond of the dark. In fact, I'm kind of afraid of it. So I sleep with a big screen TV on all night in my bedroom. And I find it really comforting just to loop the Lone Ranger as I sleep. It gives me a feeling of safety and security to know that the masked man maintains order in the world and takes those no good varmints and throws them right in jail. Welcome to my dungeon. I am Mark Patterson, doing what I used to do, sizing up races between races. Back when I was hosting the Mountaineer Feed for some 25 years, the show went somewhat viral, and I'm on my own YouTube channel now called The Dungeon. Welcome to The Dungeon, where we will share our deepest, darkest, most taboo, handicapping thoughts and secrets, I promise. Off the turf tonight, which really bums me because I actually praised this card. I've been critical of Mountaineer sometimes, but I am objective. And I threw them some props for tonight's program, which in their own quirky fashion, I think is kind of compelling, but loses a lot of its appeal, I think, with these races coming off the turf because they had full fields for tonight's grass races. At least two of them were full 10s, and one of them looked really, really competitive. That allowance optional $15,000 claimer, but coming off the grass, very different situation. Still not a bad card. But we are off the turf. Now, it's been dry the last couple of days around here, but we had torrential rains earlier in the week. In fact, I got rain, and this is a big bummer, in my basement, not on the finished side, but on the mechanical, I guess they call it, side, for the first time since we moved in here 3 years ago, and I'm big time bummed about it. But anyways, the mountain man is fast, and they're off the turf tonight. So let's get down to business here. I just had to finish up an episode of Lone Ranger. It was a pretty good one, too, and it made me a little bit late to come up tonight. I was only late a few times for the Mountaineer Feed, and I caught hell for it once or twice from my fiery boss, then director of racing, Rosemary Williams. Now, her successor, James R. Colvin, was a lot more laid back and would just kind of give me a look and just kind of toss his head or turn his head sideways. Rosemary could get pretty fired up, though. I figured, what the heck? Like the show's going to go on without me? Actually, it did. McMichael kicked it off once or twice when I was late to the studio. Let's take a look at the first race, which was never supposed to be on turf. And I got a text from a good friend of mine, Mark, from Lauderdale earlier today. And I guess he's bummed because he made a bet at Canterbury and the horse broke through the gate or threw a fit at the gate or something like that, charged the gate. They unloaded the horse. Presumably the state vet took a look at the runner, reloaded the horse, and the horse ran, and I guess did not run well. In cases like that, Mark, I would cancel my ticket without hesitation because when a horse acts like that at the gate, not good. Their head's not in the game, so to speak. First race on that fast mountain man was never lined up for turf to start with. This is 5.5 furlongs. Yeah, I dig the Lone Ranger, really. The older I get, it seems like the more I like the old shows. 5.5. Now, winners in 12 months here, we're talking about 3,200 claiming, and this is as low as you can go, both in terms of veteran conditions and also claiming price. And the first thing I notice about this race is more than a few of these want the lead, want to be up close to the engine, body slam on the inside. Going 4.5 at Charlestown and back in a previous incarnation at Charlestown before changing hands and getting freshened up, used to come from behind, but I'll take him at his word that he's now a front runner off that most recent race. Julie's Ferrari, Barrios is going to send full tilt the whole trip. Julie's Ferrari can pass horses. We'll get more in about Julie's Ferrari in a minute here. El Maro, the 3, this has always been a speed horse. Holy Saint is out, I guess. Yeah, Holy Saint scratched, correct. First Citizen, not much for him to speak of. Crafty Conquest qualifies as a wants the lead type. So you do have some speeds in here. Now, the speed I would pay most attention to is the one horse Body Slam. Body Slam embodies one of my favorite angles, no pun intended. Body Slam was sold privately, washed out of the Ronnie Brown barn at Charlestown last year over to Steve Scallon and his wife, Donna. Donna used to work with us in the racing office, and I've known Steve a long time. He's a Cajun from down in the bayou, and I think at least a second generation horseman. But whatever the case, this private buy of Body Slam did not work out right off the bat. But then Body Slam gets an eternity away from the game. They liked him enough to invest a lot of time in Body Slam, and Body Slam came back and ran okay to come closing. When you consider that's the first start in 14 months, I know it wasn't a strong field, and it kind of set up for somebody to move late, but still a good performance. Now, next time, that was a different Body Slam because that race was faster early, at least his second call, than it was late. And Body Slam worked to the front and outdueled a pretty quick-looking 4.5 furlong horse up from Charlestown, did Body Slam there on June the 28th. Now, Body Slam would succumb to a couple of closers. That was a higher condition than this, though. I think that spot read either non-winners in 2026 or Never for Life, and Loyal Clement, who ended up second there, had won, I think, 2, maybe 3 in a row, and got in under the 4 life clause, which made that a higher condition than the straight-up non-winners in 12 months. Now, Body Slam just doesn't show consistent enough speed for me to trust the slammer to come away and hold service along the inside. But off that last performance, with Body Slam having probably been still a little bit short of what he might do at Mountaineer, has me really, really interested. Does Body Slam off that recent most performance? And again, in a stronger field, under a higher condition than this. Number 2, Julie's Ferrari. Julie's Ferrari is 0 for 17 at 5.5 furlongs with just one time on an exacta ticket. That is pretty damning evidence for Julie's Ferrari. Let me tell you the deal on this horse. Julie's Ferrari was originally a route horse, and I think was claimed for $15,000 way back when, was Julie's Ferrari. It does have roll-up speed going 6 furlongs, but not a good first step. And that lack of a quick first step usually puts Julie's Ferrari back on his heels and on the defensive when he runs 5.5 furlongs. Julie's Ferrari was never like this distance at all. But if Barrios can jack this horse out of there and get some early position and be up there as part of the pace or just behind the pace, then Julie's Ferrari could well be a player, because Julie's Ferrari last time was third to a better horse than these for a slightly higher claiming price, and cost basis, I think, had to be 4 to 5 or 3 to 5 or 1 to 2 or some ridiculous short price in there, and probably looked apart on June 23rd. But it's all about the early going for Julie's Ferrari. How's Julie going to come away from the gate, and what kind of position can Barrios obtain on Julie's Ferrari? But 0 for 17 at the 5.5 furlong distance. And that's not a coincidence. It's not just a random number. It is because Julie's Ferrari does have roll-up speed out of the long 6 furlong shoot, but really lacks gate skills, even at 6 panels, much less when you back Julie's Ferrari up to 5.5 and presumably encircle him with quicker horses in the starting gate. El Maro, last time, state breds, not great state breds, but did go out there and duel for a couple of calls there, and now comes to Mountaineers. So many winners have come from Thistledown to Mountaineer over the years that have been showing speed in Cleveland and then folding late or fighting for the lead, unable to separate early. And they come here and they find it easier up on the engine. I'm not going to say this 10-time winner can't score, but off the bulk of that Ohio bred form, I think it is not likely. Southern Sense could be the only kicker in the house if Southern Sense still remembers how to close. And it's been years since Southern Sense, who once had a pretty good record over the Mountain Maine, mustered any kind of a kick. I used to like him at 5.5 a little bit, Southern Sense, who occasionally would hang going 6 furlongs. Now, Southern Sense just retired as a racehorse for the longest time, but got the winter off and then came back, and with a couple of races under his belt, finished 4th last time in a faster race than this figures to be, to the aforementioned cost basis. And I know he got passed late there, going 6 panels, but flip him to 5.5 and put him in with a bunch of want-the-lead types. He may all of a sudden remember used to be a closer off that 54 buyer, which probably makes him a contender here, Southern Sense. Holy Saints outright. I'm going to go over and check out the odds as I keep talking about this race, guys. Yeah, they're still in the paddock at 3 minutes to post. And First Citizen has got to hold some unpleasant memories for Team Julie's Ferrari because they claimed this horse once, or had a client claim this horse once, I think for about $25,000 in Ohio when First Citizen was a real runner, three other than allowances and stuff like that. And you see the 12 wins and nearly $300,000. This horse just never lifted off for Gary Welsh, First Citizen. It's got to be a bitter memory for Gary, First Citizen, who flipped barns after that a couple of times, and it just retired as a racehorse, First Citizen. It's been a while since this horse did much. Was away from September till April, runs twice, and then another layup needed. So that's not a good sign of soundness for First Citizen, who's 7-1 and actually getting a little support, maybe on the lifetime record and the new all-time low claiming price. Yeah, this horse is claimed by a mountaineer trainer who's got a horse in her, Julie's Ferrari, for I think 25,000, if I remember correctly, in Ohio a couple of seasons back. And there's Crafty Conquest on the outside. I keep waiting for this horse to find a field that he can top, because I think he's still win capable in this lowest of conditions, because he's always in some kind of a speed fight up front. But what else can you envision in here? Can you really make Crafty Conquest off all those dueling efforts and all those times when he goes up and leans hard on the leader but can't see the front? Can you really separate him from this field in the early stages? Because I think that's what it would take for this $183,000 earner to actually come through and win a Crafty Conquest. So I'm looking at the board now, and Julie's Ferrari, off this field's best last out buyer to a better horse than these, is the favorite at 3-2. I can't do that with the 0-17 record at 5.5. Body Slam on the inside. Man, can I trust him now that he's been freshened up and had a tightener and then flashed his speed? Because he is not a good horse coming away from the gate. Body Slam, and we're backing him up to 5.5 and putting him at ground zero on the inside. Now, it's something of a misconception that bad breakers are behind the 8 ball from the 1 post, sprinting at least, because there's more room in there if you watch the head-ons than any place else on the racetrack to recover from a slow start and then roll up and still show speed, because there's a big gap between the innermost post, which breaks from the 2 slot at Mountaineer, and the inside. So there's room to roll up, but I don't like how this horse breaks, and I don't like Body Slam's scant evidence of early speed, which amounts to the last race and nothing more. My other big contender here is number 4, Southern Sense, who's 9-1 up there. I think Southern Sense might get some kick on here. I think it is possible. Not a race I'm crazy, wild, in love with, but I'm going to watch how the board moves from here to post time. The 1 and the 4 are the horses I'm looking at. And race number 2, I don't really have a strong opinion on. I will say that I would make it number 2, Super Silver Dollar, and actually give number 8, Blame It on the Fun, an outside look there, just to cut it down to a couple of horses, the 2 and the 8 in race number 2. So that concludes my pre-race for the opener. I'll be back afterwards, guys. First 5.5 furlong win for Julius Ferrari, who was the big last out buyer horse. It was even money. They were pounding all over Julius Ferrari. Julius Ferrari did attempt to duel last time with a better horse, cost basis, and kudos to Barrios. It's really good from the gate for getting Julius Ferrari away and out there on top. Gary Welsh, the trainer there, I know him well for a long, long time, for decades. In fact, he was holding up a sign there. 500 wins, did it say? Are they talking about him? Or maybe Ricardo Barrios? Did anybody catch that action? Well, Gary's been training a long time, so it could have been 500 for him, I guess. A story behind the scenes. Gary's Penny, who works off and on in the racing office, she is the daughter of a near legendary retired conditioner mountaineer named Layman Eddie. He used to win so many races, Layman Eddie, and move up so many horses. I mean, he'd claim them for 1,500, for $2,000, and they'd go on to win 10 starter races over the course of a single season. Just so many success stories that Layman had that they nicknamed him Layman Divine Eddie. In fact, if you were anywhere within earshot, and I used to live across the street in a trailer, a mobile home, and you could hear all morning the racing office paging, Layman Divine Eddie, please call the racing office, Layman Divine Eddie. This guy knew some stuff. He knew some things. Gary Welsh's father-in-law. So somebody wised me up to a pattern. Whenever Penny is not working in the racing office, which I think she is right now, to be honest about it, Gary's horses run better. Gary Welsh's horses run a lot better because I think she's a really good hand back at the barn and kind of a co-trainer with Gary and gives the runners a lot of TLC. And I think that her father may have passed a lot of the wisdom down to her. Penny Welsh, who was Gary Welsh's wife. Anyways, if it was number 500, congratulations to Gary, who I've known a long time. Long time. Did somebody say Marcus staggering drunk tonight? How do these people get in here? Like, what is the point of this? Oh, by the way, this is no alcohol tonight for me. This is Diet Peach Iced Tea, which 9 nights out of 10 is my beverage of choice. And I'm a heathen. I carry it around by the half-gallon or even gallon jug, which used to appall people in the racing office. And when I go in to do the show at night, I would be carrying like a gallon of Diet Peach Iced Tea, like an umbilical cord, you know? And I got them over it. They came to realize that was how I rolled, and I didn't give a hoot what anybody thinks about what I do. I've always been a bold and very proud nonconformist. Should have conformed a little more, I guess, to Julius Ferrari in the first race, huh? Gary Welsh has won 500 races. He's been at it a long time, a really long time, Gary Welsh. He's a local guy, I think. Yeah, he's from Knoll, a local. I can remember Gary before he became a horse trainer, a long, long time ago. Welcome in, guys. I see Anthony. I see Ace McDuff, two of my friends. And there's Lyrics, who goes by Norman Williams. Your real name is Lyrics with me, man. Ocala Louie. Thanks for showing up, guys. Anthony. Conch, my man. Jerry McKnight, good guy. Bombs away, Bob. No, Bob, I'm not familiar with the Saratoga snafu. I'll have to bone myself up on it before I can comment. George says, by the way, talking about incidents at the gate, if any horse acts up and causes the gate to be emptied, I cancel whatever bet I have. Way to be, my man. Way to be. Good point. We're a little light tonight in the banners because some of my odds observations, most of them concern the grass races. There were just some woeful price points on the night's morning line in tonight's third race, which was lined up for the grass, but since it comes off and goes to dirt. And I'm sorry, for the fourth race, I think. Which race was it? There was a race tonight. Yeah, this third race. Boy, some of those odds look just ridiculous. This race stayed on grass, but since it's off, then I took that banner down because I can't criticize an odds maker when the race goes on a different surface, right? Our second race was supposed to be 1 mile on the turf. Instead, make it a mile on that fast mountain main. When this race comes off the grass, it's usually a good idea to count who's won the most races over the last couple of years on conventional dirt. And just imagine the race had been drawn up for dirt and which horses would be eligible for the higher conditions and which horses would have been able to run in lower spots. Sometimes horses go in here because they're out of conditions on conventional dirt and they're wide open because they have like 2-3 recent wins and they're grasping for conditions. and look at the denominators over on turf. In other instances, they're not doing so well on dirt. Maybe you have some history of some placings on turf. And in other instances, and I can see one or two of these in this race, they're performing so woefully on conventional dirt that their connections are willing to try anything else. So we have a little bit of this, a little bit of that in this race. These races usually, when they come off turf, even the milers that stayed a mile, usually come down to early speed. We've got two pretty obvious speeds. Number two, Super Silver Dollar. Where did that person come from? Like to come in and troll me? Please, please. What if that's even a real person or some kind of a bot or something like that? Anyway, Super Silver Dollar, wired with a good speed fig two back there. Certainly on conventional dirt. And those were certainly speed friendly fractions, almost 25 and then 49 and 2. And then backed up to 6 furlongs. It was an unusual 6 furlong race because that one came off turf, which means it kind of had a 7 furlong or even a 1 mile complexion. So you had some cutback horses able to go up and dominate the pace. The winner, Boldness, who's in later on tonight. I think at a ratings handicap, that one is a finale, right? Boldness. We'll talk more about the ratings handicaps and about that race in particular later on. Anyways, Boldness was a cutback horse who was right up in the engine by the time they banked into that far turn. And Super Silver Dollar actually had a light lead at the second call. Usually rod horses are not able to do that at 6 furlongs. But when they can, and a race that was drawn up for 2 turns on turf originally, then they're not supposed to fade. They're supposed to hang in there. So I'm not sure I give Super Silver Dollar a lot of extra credit for the most recent race, but off the last couple and off the bulk of work here, Super Silver Dollar looks much the one to beat on paper. And this horse would have to shop around for some kind of a high condition, if not entered, in this novelty spot on turf. The other speed's number 3, My Two Aunt Jones. My Two Aunt Jones is a horse I know pretty well from Mahoning. Ended up at Fort Erie after flipping over to Julie Mathis. And then now in the name of Julie Mathis's daughter, Alicia Robillard, whose horses are actually doing pretty well at the meet. Anyway, My Two Aunt Jones was always what I call an industrial strength speed horse. You let this horse get in front. You weren't gonna catch him. That's really simple. My Two Aunt Jones. The form got really ugly, but then the horse got a break, got the winner off, and came back firing. And it's not so easy to win it around. First time back off the bench, and My Two Aunt Jones did that, albeit at an Arabian pace, which I'm not sure is going to ensue here against Super Silver Dollar. My Two Aunt Jones came back, and was that a bounce? Or is My Two Aunt Jones a horse whose 15 minutes of fame is up now and is going to turn back into a pumpkin like last fall over the cold weather months at Mahoning? I don't know. The Super Silver Dollar's last couple of races look better, and these are the 2 competing speeds. So give me my druthers, and I'd probably prefer the horse that went up and earned a hard-fought lead at 6 panels last time. And Super Silver Dollar would also be in a higher condition on dirt in the condition book than My Two Aunt Jones. And remember, you want to look at who's won what in this abstract condition. When it comes back to dirt, it's a matter of who's climbed the condition food chain higher. Jedi's Way, another possible speed there, who could really throw a monkey wrench into this for Super Silver Dollar and My Two Aunt Jones, and might insist on some swifter fractions than those two prefer, than they really want. Jedi's Way was claimed by Dennis Cluley. Dennis Cluley, very sharp horseman, but it looks like he might have to eat Jedi's Way. It's not a good sign when you drop a horse right out of the claim box, even $1,000 like that. And Jedi's Way just did not fire a jump in a race that wasn't that fast paced, was on the chase, on the defensive throughout, and it was dominated by an off the bench runner who I'm not sure is all that great. I don't know, one way or the other, but I don't like the regression from Jedi's Way. First time out of the Cluley barn. I don't think he's ever really wanted to route a ground quite as much as he wants to sprint. But out of those sprints, if he's quicker to first call than Super Silver Dollar and My Two Aunt Jones, he could lead him on a lively chase. Classic King, scant route engagements on his page there. Always considered him a clunk-up horse at a 6 furlong distance who wants to lay back and watch a brisk pace unfold up top and then pass him for third or occasionally get up for second going 6 panels. I think he'd be hard-pressed to sustain at a route of ground. Krug, who thumped him last time, I think surprised the folks with a big return to his last year's form. Krug. Classic King again, I think is probably better going 6 furlongs. Sugar Lips, just no. How about no with his 2 for 50 West Virginia bred? I don't think so. Spirit of Spody's not showing me much, just dropping class. Has had a couple of races under his belt right now, and not a difficult spot for some kind of a wake up. And then the horse who I consider the primary off pace thread in here. They're coming onto the track. Definitely number 8, Blame It on the Fun. Now, a big knock, Timothy Shanley, a horseman I respect, and his runners seem to do better at Mountaineer than Charlestown. They come in with ugly Charlestown forms, and usually the ship gets righted. But I could not find many instances of him winning races with horses off, even a couple of months like this. I really couldn't. Not too many of his winners have been away more than 30, 35 days, 28 days, and stuff like that. Blame It on the Fun must be sound because he earned a hard fought win for $5,000 in a photo and gets protected from claim and spotted up for tens and starters and stuff like that for his next series of starts. So maybe he is not beyond the pale. And maybe this little vacation has restored him. Blame It on the Fun. I will say this. I doubt that Timothy Shanley won in this race with any deep and abiding hopes that this stayed on the grass. This is a case where a horse would have needed a high condition if entered at a race drawn up for dirt in the book to begin with, because he's won a couple of times this year. His Blame It on the Fun. So he's climbed the condition food chain higher than his foes, again, in this abstract novelty condition at a race that was drawn up for turf. And if Jedi's Way takes part in the pace and makes Super Silver Dollar and My Two Aunt Jones, the two industrial strength, slow pace, front running route specialists, uncomfortable, then maybe something happens like Blame It on the Fun. I would not be surprised to see him do a lot better than last time, considering the barn and maybe considering the psychology of this spot, maybe the trainer intent, just a little bit, huh? I'm not a race that I'm crazy about, just some observations from me. And good luck to you guys, whatever your thoughts are on the race. And thanks for getting with me tonight. We'll have some fun. Even money at 8 to 5 in the daily double and both on pace winners. Ramsey really aggressive on Super Silver Dollar, and Jedi's Way really didn't lead that merry a chase, 24-3, and then 48 and some change. Super Silver Dollar can cope with that and still survive. Ramsey extremely aggressive. He's outfooted into the first turn, about 3.5 lengths worth. No matter, he's going to gun as hard as he can and try to get in front as soon as he can on Super Silver Dollar, who gamely holds sway from a horse coming at him that really doesn't want to pass foes. My Two Aunt Jones, I thought that was kind of an inspired ride from Tapara on My Two Aunt Jones. He's patient by nature, and once he saw Gonzalez was hell-bent on leading on Jedi's Way, who regressed last time, I thought, off the claim by Cluley, he took back and said, let's you and him fight to Jedi's Way and Super Silver Dollar. And it almost worked for My Two Aunt Jones, who basically wants the lead, but I thought it was a really good ride, a well-strategized ride on My Two Aunt Jones as he went in with intention to get the lead and bounced the 3-horse out of there. But when he saw he wasn't going to get the lead, he went to Plan V very quickly and almost pulled off Plan B, by the way. Team Ramjeet, a lot of live horses right now and winning more than their share. Third race was supposed to be turf. We got 2 more coming up that were lined up on the grass. We're going to flip them over to the mountain main. Each of them, races 3 and 4, were supposed to be 7.5, and those go to 1 mile on Mountaineers Fast Main track. Scratches galore in this race. We still have 7, right? 7 of the post in here? No, 6. How many scratches? Let me check it out here. I think 6, correct? Yeah, the late scratches, no napping. Flat Out Diamonds came out early. And the late scratches, no napping. So we got 6 going to the post in here. And this is an allowance optional, first level, A other than or 15,000 claiming. Really popular race at Mountaineer, which was instituted here, at least locally. Not invented by, but instituted by my mentor, best racing secretary in the history of Mountaineer, Joe the Cat Narcavish, who brought these races in, and they've proven really popular. The AOC, allowance optional, the whole moniker, I think, was coined by Chuck Scrivelli, legendary trackman at Thistledown, who had a lot of input into DRF nomenclature and stuff like that decades ago. Good friends with his son, Tim Scrivelli, who's one of the top trackmen in America. And Tim works Mahoning. I'm not sure if he goes to Thistledown. Occasionally, still is on site at Mahoning. Tim's getting up there in years now. I've known him a long time. His dad, Chuck Scrivelli, legendary trackman, I think coined the term allowance optional claimer. And when I do go to Mahoning, which isn't often anymore, about a 45-minute icy cold weather drive on a windy freeway to get over there. But I like the trackside ambiance when there's anybody there, which is rare. Once you get there, it's a ghost town. They kind of lost the feeling quickly for Austintown races, for the live trackside experience. But when I do go, I always hope that Tim is on site, Tim Scrivelli, because I know where he comes down between races. And I try to hang out a little bit there so we can talk and get back to old times, Tim Scrivelli and I. But I think he works more often remote than he does on site. So much of it's remote nowadays. When do we get to the point where the races are going to be called remote, via remote? My thing with this race is, my first observation, to be more formal about it, every single entrant here, every single horse that's going to run would prefer turf. Certainly Verbal Geyser, certainly Mock and Reigns, Suffering Succotash. I got news for you. 6 dirt wins and 2 turf wins. She's better on turf. And plus, a pet theory of mine, and it holds, oh, so very true. You have so many horses, guys, that are 50-50. They can do either or. But they get a little picky with advancing age, and they enjoy running on turf a lot more, and they will turn their nose up at dirt at some point. I'm not saying Suffering Succotash is a case in point, because she ran okay last time. to better horses than these in a race that came off turf for sure. So she is a contender. I keep touting this trainer, and he's over 22 and counting. Overly Dramatic, it's interesting. Speed's always meriting a look, a long look in races that come off turf, and Overly Dramatic ran a ton on grass on June the 1st. I think would have been something good if this race remained on grass. Overly Dramatic. Unfavorable post, number 8 at 7/8, and went up and just chased and chased and pushed and pushed and pushed on a pretty quick pace, pretty quick fractions that I thought made the race closer friendly. And the winner did come from behind, and there was a lot of grass in there. There were some good grass horses. Now, Overly Dramatic comes back on dirt and off a two-turn effort, loses ground through the late stages there. Just isn't as good on dirt, Overly Dramatic, but she does have the 2 dirt wins, so that might qualify her to win an off-turf race. And also, she checks the distance box too, but that's also tricky because her mile win at a full big girl distance of ground was on turf. And so many of these horses have more stamina, route stamina on turf, that had better sprint on dirt because they don't have as much air in their lungs and can't finish as smartly in a route race on dirt. And I think Overly Dramatic might be a case in point. But with no napping out, unless Suffering Succotash is really feeling it tonight and is on go and gets hard scent coming out of there. And she was wired last time by a horse that did it under wraps, a better horse than these, Snapping Buttons. But Snapping Buttons had to be in no particular hurry to lay 3 on Suffering Succotash to first call. So the lead is probably Overly Dramatics for the taking here, which makes her a contender with those 2 dirt wins for sure. Lose Redemption was the chalk early on when I glanced over the board. Lose Redemption's a 2-time winner on dirt, 1 winner on turf, and the best buyers are even Steven there on turf or dirt. Now, Lose Redemption, the last win was on grass. The most recent race was on grass, and I thought that was closer friendly, very closer friendly on June the 21st, and I don't think a lot of Worldly Beauty who won it. And New Age Bad Girl is a good grass horse, but New Age Bad Girl wants to lead and was outfooted and hard gun the whole way, trying to press the pace and stalk and come from a little bit behind. So I thought that thing kind of melted down late and maybe flattered Lose Redemption a little bit, the way the race played out. And the time before, Lou really didn't fire at all as Take Wings went out there and set brutal sci-fi fractions, and then prevailed on her last legs. Don't get me wrong, she's a good grass horse, Take Wings, but Lose Redemption was supposed to be gaining some ground late there. But Lose Redemption does have the requisite stamina, is a 2-turn winner on dirt, I think, and is certainly a contender. I'm not sure I'd be in any big hurry to take chalk odds on Lose Redemption, though. This race heading went country wide, Mark, says Kenny Neely. Nice you guys started. We didn't invent it, but we were some of the pioneers in using this race. The thing at Mountaineer was at a big time track, allowance optionals rarely go to the claimers. Well, they sometimes go to the claimers, but usually to the blue blood horses out of the upper crust barns that have less experience and a lot higher ceiling. Straight up never twos. Very frequently win an A other than. Maybe without a claiming option, but an A other than with a lot of claiming wins and starter wins permitted. Whereas at Mountaineer, it seems like the less experienced horses that are still in possession of their 2-life and non-3-life conditions are ill-equipped to compete with the multiple career winners that have to go for the tag at an allowance optional at Mountaineer. So the balance of power kind of shifts towards the more experienced multiple claiming and starter winners at a smaller venue like Mountaineer. Not to get too technical, but you guys are smart and you guys know what I'm talking about, I'm sure. I'm sitting at 0 minutes to post. Snatched is a number 3, and that was inflation run rampant on Snatched most recent race, huh? I'm not too huge on that. Yeah, just a 2-time career winner there, and 0 for 3 on dirt. And then you have the Mockin Reigns, who was much, much better on turf, only 1 for 27 on dirt. And the race was closer friendly with those sci-fi splits on June 7th. Should have been flying late with the turf witch, Charlie Oliveros on board and saving all the ground there. So I'm not saying it was bogus, but it wasn't what it looks like from Mockin Reigns on June the 7th. Suffering Succotash used to stay left lead, ugly action, chop at the ground. Couldn't believe when she went over to Tomas Martinez from Mike Baird and won 2 consecutive 2-turn dirt allowance races. That Suffering Succotash. She's an on-pace short here too, and should be in close attendance, Suffering Succotash, and might be just coming around for the year, Suffering Succotash. I'm a little bit afraid, though, she may suffer from the formerly 50-50 syndrome, one of those horses that is at the point now where she so obviously prefers turf that she may turn her nose up a little bit at the dirt, but some signs of life in her most recent race at almost 20-1 as Snapping Buttons, who had good allowance form from New York, and just a powerful, cheap score to get eligible for that race at Mountaineer. Snapping Buttons and dominated soft fractions, looked formidable. And Canadian Bear, who was a big favorite, you guys know her. Solid, open $25,000 claimer, 1 or 2 other than allowance at Mahoning over the cold weather months, and broke slowly and won a better race than that the time before, did Canadian Bear. So she was in much tougher last time, Suffering Succotash, and she's a contender, I would say. And I'm looking at the board now, and Overly Dramatic is the 8-5 favorite, is a probable pace setter. And I think players are looking at those 2 dirt wins and kind of putting that together with the distance win on turf and figuring this horse can get a distance of ground on dirt. She might be the likeliest winner here, but I'm not in any big hurry to get to the windows on her at a 3-2 price, and 8-5 on Lose Redemption, who's the 2-time dirt winner. And the speeds are eligible to quit here for sure. Suffering Succotash and Overly Dramatic. But Lose Redemption's been flattered by the race shape in those last 2 tries to boot. So just not a race that I can work up much passion for, much enthusiasm for. I don't blow them off when I break them down because I understand every race is a 7th game of somebody's World Series, but not my World Series. And by the way, I give it the baseball analogy. How about them Buccos, my team that I bet a few hundred on to win at least 79 games this year? They were 500 flat and about to sink beneath the waves, and they take 3 in a row from the dreaded Milwaukee Brewers, including both ends of a double header yesterday, each by a single 1-run margin. And today, baby, the Buccos got the lumber out and posted 14 tallies. So I am ecstatic and starting to feel a lot better about my bet. I don't have to feel good about any bet in this race because I'm not going to wager.